All right, here we are again, back in the office to talk stiff knee sleeves, everyone's favorite subject, or at least one I'm very partial to. Now, here we are a couple of weeks later. I woke up to the news today, broken to me by Vortex Fitness, which was one of the companies impacted, that the IPF has decided to lift the ban, revoke the ban, suspend the ban on stiff knee sleeves until the end of the current equipment cycle, which is at the end of December 2026. So you have another year and a half for almost all of your favorite stiff knee sleeves. Now, I say almost all because Hansu is not on that list. However, there are other issues with them predating the initial stiff sleeve ban. So I will kind of not talk about them in this particular video, but if you want more insight, maybe we can talk about that in another talking head video. Let's focus on the problem at hand. So first of all, I think this was the right decision and one many of us saw hopefully coming and thought would be the outcome of it. I'm sure that the IPF was facing some legal issues in terms of removing an approval that had already been in place for a year and a half without any due cause, at least from the information that was provided, of course. Now, let me kind of walk it back a little bit and talk about my initial complaints with this as we sat here a couple of weeks ago. Number one, I didn't like the impact it had on the companies because, again, if this was something the IPF deemed was not acceptable or should not have been approved, then why was it approved initially and why did you take money from these companies? So the companies had to pay money. They then had to pay for the equipment itself and stock, which they would continue to do, only to have that revoked halfway through the term that they were initially approved for, which put them in a very bad spot because a majority of their customers would probably be buying to use in an IPF type competition. So a lot of issues for the companies at hand, which I did not like and how this was handled. The second was the lifters that were impacted paying for goods and services that were on the approval list only to have them revoked, when oftentimes these stiff knee sleeves or equipment for powerlifting in general is a luxury. It's an added cost. For a lot of people, it is a high cost. So to have that revoked and potentially have to go buy new knee sleeves or not be able to use something that you thought was approved with, again, what most of us did not view as just cause, it was annoying. So they did the lifters dirty, they did the companies dirty. And here we are a couple of weeks later, and this thing has been resolved for at least now, which should have been the case. Like if they had an issue and we were halfway through, again, they should have just let it go through to the end where they could put some finer print in hand to justify their actions. But again, it's the IPF. It's what we've come to expect. And between this and their current issues with their former president trying to come back and some issues in Sun City, Africa, which if you don't know about, don't read too much into because it's not a great story to tell or to look at, but it's the IPF being the IPF. So this was definitely, in my opinion, a hasty decision, but a decision that needed to be made because we shouldn't have already been here in the first place. Now, although I'm happy to see this is the outcome, especially for those companies impacted, a couple of points I still want to make because this isn't a clean thing in my opinion. So the news that I saw was broken by Vortex Fitness, again, one of the companies that were impacted. I'll try to throw a screenshot on here. They did include some language that they saw, which was on May 9th, the IPF decided to lift the ban on or the stiff knee sleeves, which was 5 days ago because today is the 14th at the time of Vortex posting that information. And to my knowledge, that was the first time anyone had mentioned it. So it took 5 days. I have not seen any word from the IPF officially yet, which I don't know if we will. I hope we do, but I wouldn't expect them to. I would expect them to try to sweep this under the rug like they have done with many of their other things along the way. But I also expect to see some other companies starting to come out. And since I initially posted my reaction to this on Instagram, I've seen Strength Shop Europe, who I wasn't initially following at the time. I follow Strength Shop USA. They have both come out and said some stuff. I expect A7 and Inzer and Titan and the other brands impacted to do the same because, again, this is a big win for them, but a win that they shouldn't have ever fought in the first place. So I expect those more things to come out in the future. One of my issues here with this, though, is also just how sloppily this was done, meaning that, again, it didn't seem like there was just cause initially. A lot of us thought there might be legal ramifications. A lot of us believed that this would be overturned or hoped that it would be, and here we are. But there is still a decent amount of time from when this decision was first made to when it was revoked. And my issue with that is, even though there was a grace period where, hey, they said these sleeves would be allowed, I think up until the summertime, like June or July, Many lifters took the ban as, hey, I need to go out and buy new knee sleeves. So many of them did. And again, the problem being that for a lot of lifters, purchasing things like this can get overly expensive or is a burden to them, especially when they had already burdened that cost initially with whatever brands they chose that were revoked approval. They went out and did this because they wanted to start training and getting used to whatever sleeves they were going to be using, which is completely understandable. Now, to play devil's advocate, you could make the argument that, hey, they shouldn't have been so hasty because they had a couple of months left. But again, I am for the lifters in this case and in all cases. Just a bad decision all around where now they're stuck with an extra pair of knee sleeves that they shouldn't have had to buy initially. And in that first video, there was a lot of comments about SBD being the bad guy, which I definitely think they played a large role in this. I do think they are to blame for many of these things, but it comes down to the IPF at the end of the day. In this follow-up scenario, I do think a lot of lifters went out and bought SBD powerlifting knee sleeves because I think it's pretty fair to say that out of the regular sleeves out there, the powerlifting are the most dense and offer the most compression and or offer the most on your lifting, even though technically knee sleeves are just for warmth and general support. So I'm sure SBD was happy with that temporary couple of weeks where they had an influx of orders where they might not have normally had. But in this second follow-up, again, I'm blaming the IPF again for just making hasty decisions, poor communications, poor outlining. It's just a mess all around, and I'm still not happy with it. Now, what I would love to see or know or speculate about, because that's what I like to do with a lot of these equipment-related videos, let me have my piece, right? Let me stand on my soapbox for a little bit. What's going to happen on the next refresh cycle? Are they just going to remove stiff sleeves completely and not allow anyone to renew their approval as is? Are they going to change the wording in the regulation and testing process, which they should do anyways? They should get more specific because if that's an issue, then they need to outline that and then be more clear on what meets approval and what doesn't. Are they going to come down with actual mixes of neoprene in terms of density, in terms of weight, length? I don't know, but they need to get more specific on that. What is that going to look like? Or are we even going to see some other legacy companies like SBD come out with a stiffer sleeve now that they have been deemed to be appropriate? I'm kind of leaning towards they will be banned in some way, but I do not know what that looks like because I think it's a very slippery slope in terms of the language needed in order to say one sleeve is not allowed while the other is, because neoprene and the rubber and all that stuff is something way above my knowledge level. And I'm assuming it's way above the knowledge level of those at the IPF, which is why we're here in the first place. But I think it's going to be very hard to eliminate some and not the other without some really tricky lawyer-like language. But let me know what you think in the comment section below. Are you happy that stiff sleeves are back? I know some people said, hey, this is a good thing. You know, it was getting crazy. This was probably a good thing, and it gave me the break from stiff sleeves that I needed to go back to training to normal sleeves. I view it as a bad thing given the current language and the rulings. You know, if you want to change that specifically where we can firmly identify what is allowed and what isn't, then I'm fine with that. The current scenario where we stand today, we cannot do that. So I'm not for the decision of removing stiff sleeves, but I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comment section below. Let me know what you think. In the meantime, as always, thanks for watching and stay big.